Do you feel like you are stuck or blocked, or that you keep experiencing the same energy or the same experience or the same trauma over and over and over again? That you're doing all of this work, but nothing seems to give? More often than not, this means that you have energy that's stored in your vessel from either past lives, from ancestral lineage, or from your childhood or even experiences earlier in your life. These energies can get stuck when we don't properly process them. So if we go through a traumatic situation, it might not even necessarily be traumatic, but to you, you didn't properly process the energy. So it could have been something that you fighted or you fought or you froze. So you fight, flight, or freeze. And so when that happens, you don't properly process the energy. You actually store that energy in your vessel. And then, you live about your day, and 10 years later, or, 20 years later, or even 2 days later, whatever it is, that energy gets poked on. Somebody comes along and they remind you subconsciously, this is all happening on a subconscious level, of an earlier experience where you had a trauma or whatever it was. Maybe they looked a certain way or they said something or that reminded you of that person, that place, or that thing. Whatever it is, it's happening on a subconscious level. And you all of a sudden get triggered. That means when you're in a trigger, that means that you have stuck energy that's in your field that wants to be released. There's a pro to this. There's an opportunity to this, which is once cleared, there's abundance waiting for you on the other side of that. But most often, people don't properly process this energy. They feed into the fear, they feed into the triggering energy, and that just adds to the block. That just adds to the stuckness. And then they wonder why they're not getting any opportunities, or they're feeling stuck, or they're feeling blocked. It's because they didn't handle that situation properly. I like to think of these things as tests, and it's not like something where you get punished, but it's like it's more so, it's a lesson from the universe. And if you pass that lesson, then you move up to the next level. And if you don't pass that lesson, then you stay the same. You stay on that frequency, and you have to retake that test. You have to re-go through that experience again because you didn't learn the lesson. You didn't handle the situation properly. You fed into the trigger. You didn't rise above, the whole shabam. It created an entire blueprint around this on how to properly handle these situations. And, I'll give you an experience, a story, a personal story that happened to me. So there is this time where, I'm a channeler. So I have a very quiet place when I channel. And the person who lived upstairs at the time, this is back in my old place where I used to have a house, and I lived in the basement suite, and this person lived on top. And they came back with a new girlfriend who had a dog, and this dog was very loud. It was so funny because, a side note, because I started barking like a dog randomly when I was at home, and then like later on in that day, and then later that day, they brought home a dog, and so I knew that I was channeling the dog coming. It was like a free warning. But anyways, side note. So this dog, it was so loud. Like it was a very barky, very angry, just very excited, or whatever you want to call it, bulldog. And I was very triggered. I went into this extreme trigger because that type of energy knocks me out of channeling. And how am I supposed to be of service to another when I'm being, when there's like these crazy noises that are happening that are just like very intense. And so at first I didn't handle the situation to the best of my ability. I was like right into fear, and I had to work through those things that came up, and I had to work the messages that came through, which are the abundance blueprint. But there's so many messages that came through around this certain thing, but it was really around acceptance, and allowing that energy to move through me and to process it in the best way that I could and not go into victim, not go into like, trying to change the situation, whatever it was. And that was harder said than done. Like receiving that information and then actually following through with it, like whole different experience. But I did. And I was like, you know, somebody would book me and then randomly the dog would just not bark or like it was wild, but I had to have that faith and I had to like keep strong and keep processing the energy. And it was so funny because I remember this one time it was so close. And, from having a service and having the dog barking, and I processed the energy so strongly. And then the next day, the dog apparently was gone. So they had to like remove the dog. I don't remember what it was. I think he broke up with his girlfriend or something like that. But that was what, they had shared with me, what I channeled around how to properly process energy. There's a huge blueprint on it. This was just some of the basics of what is coming through right now. But yeah, so that was an experience for me where I was like, wow, like it really has to do with all energy. That was a trauma from an earlier experience, and that was a trigger that had come up to the surface that I had an opportunity to clear. And once cleared, I was able to, I can't remember what the abundance was on the other end. I know that I certainly felt really good, that my frequency raised, and I know that's a part of some of the types of abundance that comes through. But yeah, I don't really remember too far of what had happened after that besides being so grateful. I believe that was the abundance now that I'm tuning into it, that the dog removed from my field. Um, and there's nothing against dogs. I love dogs. Once again, it's just for me when I channel, like it's really important that I have that clear channel. So we can also have stuck energy that happens from past lives. This is where having a Akashic reading or, past life regression work, anything to do with healing or clearing past life traumas is really important, especially if you've kind of had, like, if you look at your life and you've experienced sexual abuse often in your life, you had it maybe when you were a child and then again in your later life, and then, bing, bang, boom, there's all of these episodes. That's often a past life trauma, especially when it happens repeatedly throughout this life. It's like, and especially when it happens when you were really young, that's usually a sign that it actually stemmed from a past life. Yeah, because you're so young, it's like almost hard for you to even decipher what's going on. So that creates this stuck energy, and that just keeps repeating. So we want that gone. We don't want to keep repeating the same events over and over and over again. Specifically for me, I went through a lot of trauma throughout my life, and I had the same events kept repeating where over and over again, where, I would be all of a sudden I would lose everything and everything was taken away from me and I would be almost like homeless again. And that was basically my childhood, And so having that experience where I was taken from my family and I was taken from everything that I owned and had, and I was completely abandoned in a different country, that kept repeating in different forms until I, used the template, until I worked on myself, until I channeled how to clear those past life traumas, because it was actually a past life trauma that was repeating all the way into this life. So it's really crucial that we step into, healing those parts of us. So really take a look at your life and see what's been repeating throughout my life. What do I need to work on? What do I need to clear? And I do teach how to access the Akashic records. I also have activations in the course to help clear the block. So if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out and we can set up a free consultation. And yeah, it's something that, we all have the ability to channel. We all have the ability to access our gifts. We all have the ability to access our clairs, and I think there's this idea, there's this belief that I see a lot of students that come to me have, which is, I thought that that was only for special people. I thought that that was only people who were gifted, and it's like it's kind of funny because in the higher games, there's no such thing as being gifted. There's no such thing as clairs. There's no such thing as being psychic. You are those things. There's no word or label for it. So when we come down to, Earth in like the lower dimensions, which now it's not 3D anymore, but back in the day, it's like we had all these labels because it helped people to understand, certain concepts, but those labels are going to start to deteriorate. Like in the future, in 10 years from now, there's not going to be any of those labels that people are going to throw around. We just going to be we're going to be in that energy, and it's going to be a completely different world, which is really cool. But that is all for stuck energy. And, often with stuck energy as well, there might be limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are belief systems that we take on from our parents, on from our family lineage, we take on through society, we take on through social conditioning, our friends, we can take on through experiences, good or bad. You have good beliefs, you can have bad beliefs. A common belief that I personally see when people come to me is the belief that they have to hustle like crazy in order to make money. This is so far from the truth. In my personal experience, I have witnessed, when aligned action is very important. When you're taking aligned action, you're committed to getting out there, you're committed to doing things, and you're doing it. But also know when to surrender to energy. Surrender and aligned action combined are so important. So that would be a limiting belief. Having that belief would actually steer you away from possibly making more money. And the most times where I have made the most money was actually through more letting go and surrendering to the energy, once again, with that combined aligned action. So it really is about removing the limiting beliefs, which I can also do in Akashic Records readings. I also host a free journey once a month where I work on removing people's limiting beliefs as a group. So if you're interested in that, please check out my website. Other forms of blockages are emotions. So when you are constantly going down into the lower emotions, such as depression, anxiety, fear, stress, all of these are blocks. They're blocks to abundance. They're blocks to what's naturally meant for you to come through. So anytime these emotions come up, get curious. Ask yourself, where is this coming from? Sometimes we have to be the parent that we never had when we were younger, and we have to walk and talk ourselves out of certain things. We have to get curious. We have to ask ourselves, is that really true? I see this belief in me or this feeling in me, or I see this emotion in me. Where is this coming from? And is this really true? And then try to find where in your life where, the positive beliefs are, the positive things. Really trying to direct yourself, your attention to those positive beliefs. This is, part of aligned action, but with energy. This is, taking that step forward. This is being the parent that you never had when you were a child. So, when we have to walk and talk ourselves out of that negative thinking, which no one else can do that but you. There's a lot of healing you can do, there's a lot of work, but there's also a sense in you can keep trying to go to heal and you're never going to get anywhere when, it's really about you taking action. There is healing that you can do, but there comes to a point where you also need to really take action and not get caught into the healing loop. Because sometimes people just depend, myself included, I was here where I almost became addicted to healing myself. And we don't want that either. Life is about enjoying life. It's about having fun. It's about getting out there and doing things that fill your heart with joy. Because I can tell you right now, if you're taking all this, aligned action and there's all this hustle, but there's no play, you're not going to ever get to where you desire either. And also to add with that, what they're sharing with me right now is, it's really important to have this sense of flow in your life. It's called a disciplined flow, where you're you know, you're taking that action, but you also know when to let go, to flow, and to sidestep. Sidestep here means not getting off track, but rather, you know what, I feel really called to going to, a coffee place and going to grab a latte right now. Like my heart is telling me I need to do this. My body is saying that I need to do this, and I feel really called to doing this right now. And you might not know this, but you might actually meet the person who you are meant to meet at that coffee shop when you followed that internal guidance. And when you continuously follow internal guidance, it's going to lead you to the right people, the right places, the right experiences, and so on and so forth. And so it really is important that you tune into yourself and always take that aligned action for it. So yes, those lower emotions are also blocks. So whenever those lower emotions come up, think of them as exactly that, blockers. How do I clear this from my field? You can do this in many different ways. You can do somatic therapy. You can do breath work. You can do tapping on the body to help move energy through the body. Tapping, there's a lot of science to tapping. I think a lot of people, put it down a little bit, or they don't, because it's so light, but it's actually really powerful. And there's a lot of energy in the jaw as well, in the womb area. So the heart as well is a huge one, but wherever your body really feels it. Shaking, a static dance. When we look towards the animals, they know how to do this. When the prey is caught by the predator ends up leaving because it thinks the prey is dead. The prey gets up and it runs away, but the first thing it does is it shakes. It shakes because it knows that it doesn't want to, have that cortisol in its body. It doesn't want to carry that loaded stress, that density, and it doesn't want to recreate the same event again. But yeah, so it's important that we process that energy, but also use the template to clear that energy from where it started. It's really important that we have to clear that energy from the source. I can't stress that enough. If we don't clear it from the source, it most likely will keep repeating over and over and over and over again. Unless it's your first trauma, your first time going through the experience, of course, that means that you have the opportunity to just allow that energy to flow through. And that's really great. The cool thing about all of this is, as I stated before, there's abundance on the other end. There's abundance on the other end. This might mean abundance in frequency. This might mean abundance in energy. You might heal the part of you that, okay, yes, I received that, that is, um, you know, that is malfunctioning. And you might, receive money or clients or whatever it is. So if your body is malfunctioning right now, then that means that there is something in your body that you're holding onto that you need to let go. It might not even necessarily be in the body, but it's like something that you are holding onto that you need to let go of. It might be an idea, it might be a person, it might be a thing, maybe something materialistic. It could be anything, but if you're holding on to it, that is keeping stuck energy in your body. So if there is stuck energy in your body and you're not letting that energy flow through with these high currents that are coming through right now, then it's going to keep hitting on it. And then that body part is going to malfunction. We must be clear channels. We must allow energy to flow through us, not to us. This also goes for if we've had traumatic experiences and we haven't properly released it, we're still holding on to that energy physically in the body. Same thing, the body can start to malfunction. This is why there are so many deaths lately. This is why there are so many ailments lately, while so many people are falling off this planet. And it's important that we learn to let go, that we don't stay attached, because letting go and not being attached to the way things should be or this or that, that's a higher way of operating when we're not attached. That's a fifth dimensional way of operating. And this planet is, it's fifth dimensional now. And those who are not, who are still feeding into those lower games, which I talk about all of this in the Abundance Blueprint, which is also an ascension course. When we don't feed, when we feed into those lower games, we are, we're our body's going to start to malfunction. Like, this is actually pretty serious. Our energy's staying stuck in our field, and we're not going to be able to move forward to the next level. And we don't want that. We want to step out of those lower games. We want to raise up into a newer and higher way of operating. And this, everything in your life, and I know you've heard this before, especially if you're watching this, is happening for you. And, but it's one thing to say that and one thing to know that. I knew that knowledge for many, many years. And it hit me one day when it actually came from within, which I was like, it changed my entire outlook on everything. When it comes from within, you're like, wow, like you actually respond differently to the world. You don't react as much. You're in control of how you respond, how you react more when you know that everything is happening for you. But that is something that has to come from, your internal, like it has to be something that's like earned through self-mastery, through dedication, through practice, through training yourself, through practicing, you know, okay, I have to, I really got to get into this is happening for me mindset. How do you do that? How do you implement that? And I'll leave that up to you. Allow yourself to sit with this information and really tune into what feels right for you. It's really important that you always choose what is right for you, that you don't depend on what other people say, but rather you go inwards and you really feel with what feels right and what feels aligned for you. Thank you so much.